markets are closed now, we see cement giants in Nigeria expecting a more positive demand in the second half of this year as half-year results show positive growth momentum. Let's dissect the numbers now, and I'm being joined by Oluwaseun Dosunmu, head of investment research at Parthian Securities. Seun, before we get into the cement makers and the numbers, I'd like to first get a sense of how we're seeing the market play out this week.
Okay, so thank you for that, Kenneth. The market activities have actually been quite slow. I mean, we've seen that on one of the trading days of the week, activities actually closed in the positive. I mean, that was just largely driven by MTN's performance. I think since the time, not I think, but we've seen that since the time, the Monetary Policy Committee announced the increase in the monetary policy rates to 14%, the market has actually, activities in the market has actually slowed down. So we've seen that the market has actually had like a negative or a bearish run. And we've only seen the market close in the positive in just 2 trading sessions since the 19th of July. So generally, I mean, we're not surprised because investors will generally, because of the increase in interest rates, investors will naturally just decide to exit the equities market, I mean, for the fixed income market, because now they believe that, going forward, yields in the fixed income space will be higher. So, and don't forget that, this year, we've actually seen moves in the market that originally nobody anticipated. So for some investors who have made fantastic returns, I mean, north of 35%, they just think, you know what, we've had enough fun in the equities market. Let's now, move to the fixed income markets whereby we can preserve the capital that we've earned for, the earlier part of the year.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things that we're seeing. I mean, it's not surprising, like I said. A question that comes to mind now after that is that, okay, so what happens going forward? I mean, we've seen that, some of the numbers that have been released have been quite good. However, investors are not reacting the way we anticipate, even with the dividends that we are now.
Yes. So now let's get down to the numbers of the cement players now, and looking at how the key players there, we're talking about Dangote Cement, we're talking about Boa Cement and Lafarge here. And I'm trying to imagine for you though, how do you rate the performance of these key players?
I think they've actually been resilient. I mean, if you look at their top line in terms of their revenues, you'd see that there was some form of growth in those numbers. I mean, if we, like you mentioned, let's look at Boa Cement, for instance. I mean, their volumes increased to 3.3 million tons for the first half of the year. And in terms of their pricing, they increased their prices. Let's not forget that, during the second quarter of the year, the macroeconomic space was quite, the operating environment was quite difficult. I mean, we had several challenges. I mean, first of all, the lingering effect or impact of the geopolitical tensions between Russia and Ukraine, and how that has affected energy prices and commodity prices in general. We also have the effect of exchange rates. I mean, it actually hits a lot of it actually hits a lot of companies. And let's not also forget gas too. I mean, gas prices, and even the fact that we had limited supply. That also affected Dangote cement. So I mean, generally, I mean, the operating environment was not favorable.
Yeah, but Seun, how do we see all of this translating to their finance costs, and how did this play out to the bottom line?
Oh yeah, I mean, it actually hit Dangote cement a bit hard. I mean, one of the reasons why is because the exchange rates. Dangote actually had a hit of about 40.7 billion in terms of the unrealized foreign exchange losses. They actually hit their books a bit harder than the other two in terms of Boa Cement and Lafarge. We've also seen that in terms of their performance during the markets, investors have not been favoring those stocks. I mean, the only one that we've actually seen investors actually take position in is actually Lafarge. I mean, the price actually declined to about 22 naira, and since then it has picked up to about, I think, 25 now. Yes. So generally, like I said, the operating environment was not too favorable. Exchange rate also affected some of their numbers, because and also the gas, yeah, that was also a major thing. However, but for Boa Cement was able to fall back on the LPFO energy in terms of fuel and diesel. They did that for some of their plants, because their Edo plant and is fully what's it called now? is fully dependent on gas. So what they did was that, I mean, when they were getting between 50 to 60% of what they were originally getting to power the plants, they decided to fall back on, the LPAFO and diesel to actually run the plant. I mean, the same thing for the Sokoto plant. Is also run by gas, but I mean, they also had issues with, diesel and the fact that diesel prices, when we started the year, diesel prices were around 120 naira. I mean, during the second quarter, diesel prices were as high as even if not more than 780 naira. So you can see that's increase. Obviously, I mean those companies were not able to successfully, even if some of them did. I mean, they increased their prices quite all right, but they were not able to successfully increase prices the way they would have, loved to. And they were unable to do that. I mean, push that to consumers' wallet because, consumers' wallet remain pressured. Um, Consumers are not, earning as much as they used to. Even though, yes, we've seen some form of improvement in terms of, building and construction activities. There was always a slowdown during the raining period or raining season. Sorry. But then, I mean, looking forward, I mean, you would still see that during the fourth quarter of the year, once is the dry season, you start to see, more volumes and improved numbers in terms of the revenue numbers. If you look at the finance costs too, I mean, for Dangote Cement, you would also see that finance cost actually increased. I mean, there was a significant increase in that. I mean, just like I mentioned earlier, due to the foreign exchange losses and things like that.
All right,
So
then.